One late night I was driving home after a long day. The road was dark and empty, and my eyelids were heavy with exhaustion. Suddenly, I noticed my gas gauge was nearing empty. I couldn't risk running out of fuel in the middle of nowhere, so I was relieved to spot a dimly lit gas station up ahead. The gas station looked old and run down, with flickering neon lights that barely illuminated the surrounding area. I pulled in and parked beside one of the pumps. The place seemed deserted, but I figured the attendant might be inside the small, shabby store. As I got out of my car, a chill ran down my spine. The air was unusually cold for a summer night, and an eerie silence surrounded the station. I walked towards the store, my footsteps echoing on the cracked pavement. Inside the store, a single bulb flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the room. The shelves were half empty, and a layer of dust covered everything. Behind the counter, an old man with a haggard face and hollow eyes stared at me. His gaze was unsettling, and I felt a knot of unease tighten in my stomach. "Need some gas?" he asked in a raspy voice. I nodded, trying to ignore the creeping fear that was growing inside me. "Yes, please." He handed me an old, rusty key attached to a wooden tag. "Pump number 3, he said, pointing outside. I took the key and went back to my car. As I started to fill the tank, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I glanced around but saw no one. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the faint hum of the pump. Suddenly, I heard a soft whisper. I froze, straining to listen. The whispering grew louder, more urgent, but I couldn't make out the words. I looked around frantically, but the gas station was still empty. My heart pounded in my chest, and I hurried to finish fueling. As I replaced the pump, the whispers stopped abruptly. I sighed in relief, but the silence that followed was even more unsettling. I returned the key to the old man inside the store. His eyes seemed to follow my every move, making my skin crawl. "Safe travels," he said with a sinister smile as I turned to leave. I quickly got back into my car and started the engine. As I pulled out of the gas station, I glanced in the rearview mirror. My blood ran cold when I saw several shadowy figures standing near the pumps, staring at my car. They hadn't been there moments before. I sped down the dark road, trying to put as much distance as possible between myself and that creepy gas station. The further I drove, the warmer the air became, and the whispers in my head slowly faded away. But the fear lingered, refusing to let go. A few miles down the road, I saw flashing lights up ahead and pulled over, thinking it was a police checkpoint. A state trooper approached my car, and I rolled down the window, my hands still trembling. "Everything all right?" he asked, shining his flashlight into the car. I stopped at a gas station back there, and it was really creepy. The trooper's face grew serious. "Gas station? There's no gas station on this stretch of road. It burned down years ago. People say it's haunted." My breath caught in my throat as his words sank in. The trooper must have seen the fear in my eyes because he added, "You're not the first to mention seeing something there. Best to avoid that place." I nodded numbly, thanking him before driving off. The rest of the journey home was a blur. When I finally reached my house, I collapsed onto my bed, still haunted by the night's events. I never took that road again, and I avoided driving late at night. The memory of the gas station and its eerie whispers stayed with me, a chilling reminder that some places hold secrets best left undisturbed. Before we get into the next story, if you come for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to a channel and press the bell icon for upcoming scary stories. We need your support. Please share the stories with your friends and family. Thanks. In the heart of the dense forest, where sunlight struggled to pierce through the thick canopy of ancient trees, lay a darkness that seemed to swallow sound itself. It was a place of serenity by day, where the rustling leaves and chirping birds created a symphony of nature. But by nightfall, the forest took on a different character, one that whispered of secrets and shadows. I've always been drawn to the mystique of the forest, Its towering trees and winding trails offered solace and inspiration. On a cool autumn afternoon, I ventured deeper than usual, camera in hand, eager to capture the beauty that lay hidden in the gloom. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I realized I had ventured into unfamiliar territory. The once familiar landmarks were obscured by an eerie darkness, and a chill settled in the air that had nothing to do with the temperature. Pushing aside a creeping unease, I pressed on, guided by the beam of my flashlight. The comforting rustle of leaves now sounded like hushed whispers, and shadows danced eerily among the trees. Then, I saw it, a faint glow emanating from deeper within the forest, beckoning me forward. Curiosity mingled with trepidation as I quickened my pace, navigating through dense underbrush and over gnarled roots. The air grew heavy with a scent, an unidentifiable mixture of damp earth and something metallic, like old blood. Despite the warmth of exertion, goosebumps prickled my skin. Emerging into a small clearing, I found myself standing before a circle of ancient stones, moss-covered and weathered by time. Within the circle, a soft luminescence pulsed, casting a ghostly glow upon the surroundings. My heart pounded in my chest as I approached cautiously, sensing an otherworldly energy permeating the air. The stones formed a makeshift altar adorned with wilted flowers and half-burned candles. The ground beneath my feet seemed to vibrate with a presence, and a sense of dread washed over me. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl echoed through the clearing, freezing me in place. I spun around, flashlight trembling in my grip, but the shadows swallowed the sound. Fear gripped me like icy fingers, urging me to flee. A figure emerged from the darkness, a silhouette cloaked in tattered robes, eyes gleaming with an eerie light. I stumbled backward, mind racing with disbelief and terror. The figure moved closer, flickering like a wraith in the moonlight. In a panic, I sprinted through the trees, branches clawing at my clothes and underbrush snagging my ankles. The figure's unearthly laughter echoed behind me, taunting and relentless. Tears blurred my vision as I fought to stay upright, heart pounding in sync with my frantic footsteps. Just as I felt I could run no further, I burst into a familiar clearing. Moonlight filtered through the trees, casting long shadows on the forest floor. Gasping for breath, I collapsed, trembling with exhaustion and fear. Hours passed before I dared to move, cautiously retracing my steps back to civilization. The forest seemed quieter now, the malevolent presence gone with the dawn. I emerged onto the trailhead, greeted by the first rays of morning sunlight breaking through the canopy above. I never spoke of what I encountered that night in the depths of the forest. The memory haunted my dreams, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath nature's beauty. Since then, I've avoided venturing into the woods alone, forever changed by the encounter that shattered my sense of security in the wilds. I worked as a night guard at an old factory, where the quiet and solitude suited me well. One evening, something happened that made my heart race. At the end of a hallway, I saw a ghostly figure, a woman in a white dress, her face pale and sorrowful. I approached her, hoping to understand what I was seeing, but she disappeared right before my eyes. Startled and shaken, I told my boss about it the next day. He chuckled and said it was probably a prank or my imagination running wild. "Don't worry about it," he assured me. "This place is old, and old places tend to have stories." But the figure didn't stop appearing. Every night, at the same time and in the same spot, she would reappear, looking at me with mournful eyes. Determined to uncover the truth behind this haunting, I decided to investigate the factory's history. I spent hours digging through records and archives. Eventually, I learned that the factory had been built on the grounds of an old mansion that had tragically burned down decades ago. A woman named Elizabeth had died in that fire, It dawned on me that the ghostly figure I had been seeing was Elizabeth's spirit, restless and seeking peace. I wanted to help her, so I dug deeper into her story. I discovered that Elizabeth's fiancé had started the fire to collect insurance money. It was a heartbreaking betrayal that had cost Elizabeth her life. With newfound determination, I tracked down the descendants of Elizabeth's fiancé. I told them about Elizabeth's tragic fate and how her spirit was still haunting the factory. They were shocked by the story and deeply moved. They agreed that Elizabeth deserved peace and closure. Together, we organized a memorial for Elizabeth at the factory. It was a small gathering, but it was filled with heartfelt words and remembrance for Elizabeth. We placed flowers at the site where the mansion had once stood, honoring her memory and acknowledging the injustice she had suffered. After the memorial, something remarkable happened. The ghostly figure of Elizabeth stopped appearing. It was as if she had finally found peace, knowing that her story had been acknowledged and honored. I felt a sense of relief and accomplishment, knowing that I had helped a lost soul find peace. Although I continued my job as a night guard, the factory no longer felt haunted. It became a place of quiet and history, with Elizabeth's spirit finally at rest. But I never forgot Elizabeth and her haunting presence. Her story stayed with me as a reminder of the power of compassion and the importance of seeking justice, even for those who are no longer with us. In the quiet nights at the factory, I often thought about Elizabeth and hoped that she had found the peace she had long sought. Her memory became a part of the place, a testament to the enduring power of stories and the impact they can have on those who hear them.